What do you see in this problem? Absolute value, okay? You guys remember how to solve these? What do I need to do first? Subtract 6. Whether it's an inequality, a radical, an exponential, you always get that piece by itself. So you have the absolute value of y minus a equals 9. Then what? What does absolute value mean? Make it a positive? Okay. But,
so y can be a negative, but it can turn out to be a positive.
right, y could be a negative, or it could be a positive. And remember, absolute value is how far away you are from 0. So whenever you have absolute value equations, remember you need 2 separate equations. One where one's positive and one where it's negative. So remember, the absolute value of 9 and absolute value of negative 9 is still the same. 9. So y would equal 1 and y would equal negative 1. So those will be your solutions. Of course, you want to always go back and check to make sure you do not have extraneous solutions. And when you plug it in, that's negative 9. Absolute value makes a positive, plus 6 gives you 15. Plug in 1, that gives you, did I just add?
When you add 8 to 9, you don't get 1.
Yeah, you get what? What do you get?
Yeah.
17. I know, as I was plugging it in, I was like, that's not going to give me 15, and it should. So yes.
I was like, how we speak more.
Sorry. Alright, so you gotta remember this. Remember absolute value equations. You need 2 equations, 2 answers. Yes? Cool. Let's keep it moving. It says name this property. Okay. Illustrated by 7 times parenthesis 9 plus 1 equals parenthesis 9 plus 1 times 7. Which one of those properties is it? Is it distributive? No. Because if we like, remember, distributive means we're actually carrying over, right? What about these? What about these here? Which one could it be? It's not D. Why is it not D? Because you're multiplying here, not adding. Very good. Now you're stuck. 50-50 chance. What do you think? B? Would you 100% sure? Or is that what you would go with if this was on the EOC? You go with B? Who would go with C? Only one? Well, come on, you gotta make a decision. Exactly, it's multiple choice. And are you penalized for guessing? No, you just don't get no points. You can get negative points, you just won't get no points. The answer is B, okay? Commutative property basically means that you switch places. Okay, you see how the x plus 9 was at the end, but then it was at the beginning here? Okay, commutative property basically switches the places. Associative property would keep the numbers in the same spot, the parentheses would move. Does everybody understand that? So commutative property, the numbers trade places. Associative property, the numbers stay where they are, it's the parentheses that moves. Okay, so an example of associative property would be, let's see, 7 times 9, look, it would have been that on the right side of the equal sign. Everybody understand that? Okay. What about here? What do I do? Now, when subtract negative 3, well, I would need to distribute the negative 3. Now what? Combine like terms. That gives me 48. Now what? Subtract 48. Gives me a negative. And then what? And you gotta remember, when you divide or multiply by a negative number, switch the sign. So then this will be a positive 13. Okay, do not forget, when you divide or multiply by a negative, you switch the signs. You switch the signs. Okay, you remember that? Good stuff. Ooh, what about this? This is an example of a what? What kind of inequality? Compound inequality, okay? you're going to have two solutions. Your final answer is going to be written with your x in the middle and two numbers on the side. How do I solve this?
Subtract 10 from all sides.
Subtract 10 from every side. So then this gives me a negative 12 less than 4z less than or equal to 2.
Divide by 4 on everything.
Divide everything by 4. You just don't do it to one part of the inequality, you do it to both parts. So then what will I have here?
Negative 30.
It's less than z, less than or equal to 1/2. Very good. Quick review. If they asked you to graph this on the number line, what would be at negative 3? And at 1/2? Close. And where would the shading go? In between. Okay, good. Glad you guys remember. Remember, anything you're not remembering, I strongly suggest you to write it down, okay? I got another one, but this one's a little bit different. It's the absolute value inequality. What's the first thing I do? That doesn't change. I still got to get the absolute value by itself. And that is 2.
You have to make 2 equations with the signs different.
2 equations where the sign is different. So the first equation is going to be what? But the second one is going to be less than negative 2. So not only does the number change, the sign changes as well. And it's only the sign and the number after. The absolute value part stays the same. The absolute value part stays the same. Okay? So what are my 2 solutions? M is what?
Greater than 6.
And M is less than positive 2. Okay? On a number line, are these two going to like intersect each other, the shading? They're going to do what? Go away from each other. What's at 2? Open. And then 6? And they're going to go in opposite directions. So back to you guys. You haven't forgotten this? Good stuff. Okay? I know I'm kind of going a little fast here. I'm trying to refresh your memory on this stuff, okay? Now this, probably learned this back in Algebra 1. Didn't really cover it in Algebra 2, but I want to make sure that if they ever say anything like this, you're not like, okay, what is
I
this?
remember this. I do
Okay.
not like it.
All right? You have real numbers and you have imaginary numbers. Now this is an example of a Venn diagram, okay? For Venn diagrams, when things overlap, that means they have things in common. Within real numbers, you're either going to have rational numbers or irrational numbers. You clearly see what are irrational numbers, right? Square roots, pi.
Teachers, at this time, would you please release those?
Okay? So you have rational and irrational numbers. Clearly see the difference between what makes a number irrational and what makes a number rational. Okay? Your fractions, your negative numbers, your positive numbers, all those are examples of rational numbers. Okay? Now, rational numbers can be written as a fraction. Clearly 7/3, 3/8, negative 1/5, those are examples of rational numbers. Integers are your whole numbers, positive or negative. Okay? Whole numbers are just your positive numbers, including 0, and natural numbers are just your positive numbers. Okay? So if I ask you 1/3, where does 1/3 fall? Okay? It's a rational number. Okay? And on top of that, it's also real. Okay? What about negative 5/6? It's rational, which means it's also real. This decimal, 1.28375991470 ... What is that? Well, it's not imaginary because if it has an I, that means it's imaginary. If it doesn't, it's not. Can you actually put that back into a fraction though? It's a continuing decimal. It's real, but it's not rational. It is irrational. Okay? Now, if it was 0.333333 repeating, you know 0.333333 repeating is what fraction? 1/3. So that would be an example of a rational decimal. because it can't be converted back into a fraction. This one, yeah, that's not going to be converted back into anything. What about 52? What is 52?
Everything except irrational.
It's everything except irrational. So it's natural, it's a whole number because it is a positive number. It's an integer, it's a rational number because any positive number or any whole number can be written as 52 over 1, just a fraction, and of course, real. Lastly, what's negative 90? It's an integer, it's rational, and real. Okay? So I just want to cover that just in case you guys forgot that from Algebra 1. So then that way they're not trying to give you like a whole matching thing or like a checkbox thing, like, you know, what category do these numbers fall in. They're very welcome to do that for you. Okay? Then we got just a few more. What do you do in this problem?
Plug 2 in for A and -3 in for Y.
2 in for A, -3 in for Y, and then what? What does evaluate mean?
Solve.
Solve. Get a number. Okay? 2 negatives make a what?
Positive.
Positive. And if you remember order of operations, what should you do next? Square my parentheses. Okay, so 5 squared is. And then what's the next one I do? Should be -27. Then what? Multiply was 2 times 27. Next one. -54. And so then I just subtract, and my answer is -27. Okay? Don't forget about that. Evaluate means solve. Of course, if they give you value, you plug it in. Okay? The same one for this. What about this problem? Let's read it. Formula A equals -180 n minus 2 over n. Should look familiar. Geometry. Relates a measure A of an interior angle of a regular polygon to the number of sides n. The interior angle measures 120 degrees. Find the number of sides.
So
120 equals A. And you know this because it says the interior measure is 120 and A is the interior angle. And if I'm looking for my number of sides, that means I'm looking for what variable? How do I solve this? 5. And remember what I do? Multiply n by both sides. I'm canceling out over here, so I have 120 n equals 180 n minus 2. What do I do from here? Distribute. So I get 180 minus 360.
Just kidding.
Then what?
No, you're gonna add your 180.
Subtract
180.
Subtract the 180.
Okay.
You gotta get
Sorry,
your
guys.
n's together.
Okay.
So what's 180 n minus, sorry, what's 120 n minus 180 n? -60 n. Divide by -60 and n is positive 6. So I have 6 sides. There you go. Got your nice little review of inequalities, absolute value a little bit, word problem.